Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Okay, I am back with Rob Wolf for more discussion about how to design a diet that actually works for you. Rob, thank you again for coming on the show.
Huge honor to be here. Thanks.
Okay, so it's an obvious teller. I think people want to lose weight. That's a good place to say, okay, well, I want to change my diet. But there are other indicators too for someone who might want to make a change. So how do you know maybe this is a good time for you to look into doing something like this?
You know, that's a great question. If somebody is super stressed out, like if they have a very stressful work environment, they have difficulty with school or something like that, that's maybe not the best time to try to go on a diet. Just simply trying to be healthy, you know, may be the best way to go, and focus on sleep, you know, getting in bed earlier, getting out in the daylight when the sun is out and getting, you know, skin on our person, helping to set up that good circadian rhythm, having really quality social connection, you know, having community, because there's fascinating research that suggests people with inadequate social connectivity are as at likelihood of death and disease as a pack-a-day smoker. So you need good friends, you need good family, you need good support. Those things are really, really critical. And even though, you know, I'm like the diet guy and write stuff around biochemistry, I end up spending probably 80% of my time talking about sleep and community and stress, because all of those things really set the stage for, are you ready to start tinkering with the food? And if you have a lot of drama in those other areas, if you don't have those things in a fairly even keel, then it can be really difficult to implement that food part.
So for people who might have been very strict with their diet, eating very healthily, but they're not able to see a difference, could it be that they're undermining themselves in these other areas, not getting enough sleep, not having good social interactions, having too much stress, that sort of thing?
Absolutely, and it's ironic because we're so driven. Americans are hard workers, and so we say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Sleep's for the weak, you know. And the ironic element of this is that if somebody goes on vacation and they go off their diet and they're eating tacos and drinking margaritas, and they come back to their gym that they're going to and they're like, I'm leaner than when I left. And it's because they had virtually no stress. They slept like a teenager during the middle of the summer. And you know, that just ends up modifying their hormonal status, improves their insulin sensitivity. And so, you know, it's funny because selling sleep should be as easy as selling sex. You know, it shouldn't
Right.
be that hard,
Yeah.
but people fight you tooth and nail on it. And the folks who really fight it are those type A kind of corporate driven individuals. You see it in police and fire also, where there's this sense of like, I'm hard, I'm tough. And this is true whether they're male or female, but they're going to motor through. And maybe they've been able to do that for a while, but you start getting out of your 20s and into your 30s, and that sleep deprivation and the stress and the kind of beatdown ends up being a huge factor. And the diet can become very, very important because, you know, say like a night shift police officer, the only thing they may be able to control is food. They may not be able to modify that work schedule, so they need to be extra diligent on the food so that they don't have both bad diet and bad lifestyle factors coming together.
Yeah, I think it's kind of relieving to hear that it's multifaceted, and also that these things that are naturally, they feel good, are
Right.
also good for us, you know? Okay, so say we get past those things and we get to the diet. Where's a good place to start for someone who wants to move into eating a little more cleanly?
You know, I have a 30-day reset that I recommend in the book, and then also on my website. If folks go to robwolf.com, they can get a free downloadable 30-day reset off of there. And it really just starts people at a simple whole food approach, kind of based around paleo foods, but there's a little bit of latitude in that. And what I find is that 30-day reset is long enough that you can really experience some significant success, but it's short enough that you're not intimidated about doing it. Usually you can threaten or cajole someone into doing the 30 days. And then when they get done with it, they can look back at it and just say, okay, was it worthwhile or not? Was the return on investment worth it? And more often than not, people find, yeah, okay, I lost some weight, I feel better. Maybe 80% of the time I'm going to stick pretty tightly with this, 20% of the time I'll kick my heels up, and that's a pretty livable place to go to.
Okay, so I know that everyone reacts individually to certain foods, but some foods have been identified as bigger problems than others. So which ones are our risky groups where you're likely to have like an inflammatory or negative response?
Oh man, you had to goose me here. Wheat and gluten-containing items are really problematic foods, and it's a really controversial topic. Folks in the more mainstream dietetic scene think that this is all neuroses and orthorexia and disordered eating. If I could figure out a way to recommend those foods and it would be healthy and it worked for people, I would sell more books than Harry Potter. But the reality is that those foods are problematic for some folks. And to the degree that my work's been successful as it is, it's been suggesting that people take some of these very tasty foods out of the rotation for a while, see how they feel, reintroduce them, and then make some analysis there. But wheat and gluten-containing items are a biggie. Dairy is also a potentially pretty big factor for some people, but the greasy used car salesman pitch that I have is pull it out for 30 days, reintroduce it, and see how you do.
What about sugar?
Well, sugar, people don't just eat sugar. They eat it with these other things. They eat it with pastries. They eat it with cereal. They eat it with ice cream. So sugar is a big factor, but folks are rarely just sitting down and spooning in sugar or just eating like caramel or something like that. It's these other combos. So we definitely want to be mindful of sugar, but if we're focusing on a largely whole unprocessed diet, then the sugar kind of takes care of itself.
So would gluten and wheat-based products be the number one thing that you'd say, cut it out and see how you feel?
If I could dive in front of one bullet and save a lot of people, if I could just get them shifting more towards rice and corn and things like that in lieu of wheat and gluten, a lot of people would see a significant improvement in their health.
Okay, we only have a few minutes, but I do want to touch on this because I think this is huge. Anytime anyone's dieting, keeping your appetite in check is really hard, especially when you're making a switch to less calorie dense foods.
Right.
So how would you advise that people just keep the hunger at bay?
Definitely sleep. So sleep is a huge piece to that. If they go to bed a little earlier, if they turn down the lights during the evening so that they fall asleep earlier, when we're sleeping well, our appetite is very well regulated and we tend to have more just resolve and willpower. The other piece is focusing on kind of nutrient dense protein sources, leaner cuts of meat, lots of fruits and vegetables. Those things are just difficult to overeat.
Yeah, and then staying away from the things that make us want to eat more even after we've had plenty.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good to know. For those who feel totally daunted by cutting out all the things that they're used to eating, what's your message to those people?
They can try partial steps, but I find that doesn't work that well. You remove the thing that the person wants enough to annoy them, but not enough that they really feel that much better. And so I do kind of recommend both feet into the pool, but they need a why. Like, why do you want to do it? I saw both of my parents die at a relatively young age due to type 2 diabetes complications. I did wound care on my father as they amputated his leg. I'm not going to expose my daughters to that, and I don't want to die or live that way. So for me, my why is I want to be as healthy as I can, as long as I can, so that I can be a part of my girls' and my wife's lives. So I think everybody can look inside and figure out a why that is compelling. And then again, they can, this change doesn't have to be permanent. And also it isn't necessarily as onerous as what the initial change may be. Like, some people may do fine with wheat, so when they reintroduce it, they don't notice a problem and they keep going with it. But what I'm suggesting is that they give it a shot, 30 days, pull most of the problematic foods out, and then reintroduce them and see how they do.
All right, we've got about a minute and a half left. In that time, I know that you do a lot of work with tailoring diets based on responses in people's actual blood work. If they want to get that done, where would you send them?
Here in Reno, they can go to Specialty Health on East Liberty, and they've done amazing work with the local police and fire. They did a phenomenal risk assessment program with them, which saved the city a lot of money, and they're really on point with all the blood work and analysis that they do.
And it's literally like, eat a sweet potato and see
Yeah.
see what happens
See what
to your
happens.
blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's unpredictable, right? Everyone responds differently.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. My wife and I just got through doing this experiment, and she is a much better carb handler than I am. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, also lots of information in Wired to Eat. I've read the first 40 pages so far. It's been fascinating, and I have been harping about it to all of my coworkers. So recommend it. You can pick it up at any local bookstore. Rob, Thank you so much for your time.
Huge honor to be here. Thank
I
you.
appreciate having you.
Thanks.
All right, well, that's it for this episode of Face the State. For more information on all of this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.